رحمة للعالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Sound okay? Alhamdulillah. As was mentioned in the introduction, tonight's discussion bi'idhnillahi ta'ala is going to be on the topic of Al-Istiqamah, which is often translated as being steadfast, being upright. Sometimes the word integrity is used for istiqamah because integrity means to stick to your principles. And in effect, istiqamah, or your values and your principles. And in effect, this is part of istiqamah, at least, is that you have a set of principles and values, beliefs, and that you stick to them. But we'll go a little bit deeper, inshallah ta'ala, into the meaning of istiqamah, and also, just as importantly, how do we attain al-istiqamah. And as a side note, I think it's very important for us in general that when we have concepts that we're talking about, that we think of practical ways to implement them in our lives. Otherwise, a lot of times it remains to be theory without a real way of applying this to my life. So hopefully by the end of tonight, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll have looked at some of the ways to really become people of istiqamah. The Prophet ﷺ was approached by one of the companions, Sufyan ibn Abdullah, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, قل لي في الإسلام قولا لا أسأل عنه أو لا أسأل أحدا عنه غيرك. He said, tell me a statement in Islam that I don't have to ask anyone about it after you. And the scholars have different ways of interpreting this question, but basically it boils down to he wants it to be clear so that he doesn't need anyone else to explain this statement to him. Tell me something that's clear enough that I don't have to ask anyone after you about this statement. But I also want it to be somewhat comprehensive, something that, is broad enough that when I implement it, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it will keep me on the path of Islam. And so the Prophet ﷺ said to him, قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Say, I believe in Allah, and then be mustaqim, ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Then have istiqamah. So the first part of this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says to the man, Sufyan, the companion, radiyallahu anhu, he says to him, say, I believe in Allah. Amantu billah. We usually translate that as believe in Allah, but to be honest with you, languages come loaded. So for us, especially for those who are of an English-speaking background, we think about belief. What do we think of? Something that you do? I'm asking you. No, what do you think? It's conceptualized, right? Something in your heart, something that you doesn't really mean something that you do. But iman, from the Islamic context, is not just something that you believe in your heart. That belief has to manifest itself on your tongue and on your limbs. Otherwise, it's not real iman. So, amantu billah, when the Prophet ﷺ is telling this man to say, amantu billah, that I believe in Allah, that I have iman in Allah, it doesn't just mean to believe, right, as we would say, to believe in Allah without there being some outward manifestation of that belief. And this part for us is very important, because before we get to istiqamah, right, which is being what? Steadfast on a path, you have to know what that path is. So believe in Allah and then be mustaqim. Okay. So here the Prophet ﷺ is saying, have faith in Allah. Have iman. Say that I have iman in Allah. Now, that means something very important for us as believers. It's people who truly believe in Allah. And that is that we submit to the commands and prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This point cannot be stressed enough. Before we talk about istiqamah, we have to talk about this point, which is true submission. A Muslim, one who truly believes in Allah, is one who submits. That is very important for us in this day and age, because we live in an era that does not promote submission. In fact, submission is almost looked down upon. Now, if we take a step back, and for those of you who have, how many of you have children here? Not that you have children in a masjid, you have children. Okay. Imagine your 5-year-old child, and they say, I want to go outside, 7:30 at night. They want to go outside and they want to ride their bike down the street. And you start to think, maybe that's not really a good idea. You have a whole thought process that you're going through. It's not really a good idea. It's nighttime. There might be cars coming. Maybe there's just a lot we can't see. Somebody might snatch the child. We don't, depending on what kind of neighborhood you live in. So, you're going through all of this process. The child is 5 years old. Some children at 5 may be able to follow your thought process, and others will not be able to follow that thought process. For them, they just want to have fun. And you are standing in the way of them having fun. Now, this is between an adult and a child. I mean, we're still talking about two human beings. And they may not be able to they may not be able to follow your thought process, but you have a reason for why you are telling them, no, you can't go outside right now. Or why you're telling them to do certain things first before you're allowed to play, or whatever. So you have a reason for doing this. They may not be able to follow that reasoning. And this is between two human beings. When it comes to Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made certain things an obligation upon us, and He's prohibited us from other things, and we may not always know the reason why. This is important, because submission as a Muslim dictates, when I say I believe in Allah, that I believe that I have a creator who created me, and I believe that He sent down revelation, then that dictates for me that I follow His commands and that I abstain from His prohibitions, even if I don't fully understand them. Now, do we understand a lot about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us and what He has prohibited us to do? Yes, alhamdulillah. As a matter of fact, I almost can guarantee that most of you right now understand things about Islam that you may not have understood 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You go through certain stages in life and you start to understand, subhanAllah, now I know why I need to pray 5 times a day and not 3, for example. Now I understand the wisdom of zakat. I understand why we're supposed to fast. And at some point in life, you may not have understood that, but you go through certain stages, and as you grow and as you develop and you go through your experiences, you begin to understand things that you didn't understand. Now, the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not changed, but you have. Your understanding has. And now you can appreciate these commands, and you can appreciate these prohibitions in a way that you did not appreciate before. Belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dictates that we follow the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether or not we understand it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us to follow those laws. Part of making it easy may be that you now understand what you didn't used to get before. But being a Muslim, a true servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who submits, means that you will follow those commands even if you do not fully understand them. So when we say, Amantu billah, when we truly profess our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means that we're going to follow the commands as long as we know that in fact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to do this thing, or that He has prohibited us from doing this thing, so we're going to stay away from it. I'm saying this at the risk of sounding like someone who doesn't believe in reason and wisdom and so forth. I'll say that at that risk, because the reality is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite knowledge has prescribed certain things for us, and we as human beings have to realize, like Imam Shafi rahimahullah ta'ala said, inna lil aqli haddan kama anna lil basari hadda, that your intellect has a limitation just like your sight has limitation. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with intellect, just like He has blessed us with sight. But your sight has a point where it stops. You don't see what's going on behind that wall. There's a barrier there. It stops. Your sight cannot go beyond that. We don't have x-ray vision. Likewise, the aql that Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with to be able to understand His commands and His prohibitions, it still has a limit. And we have to accept that. Even though we live in a time where everything is pushing us beyond that. That this intellect, the sky is the limit, as they say, and you can do anything you want and so forth. And that those who restrict themselves to religion they're backwards. They are not evolved human beings. And whatever other derogatory terms that they use to describe people who just want to be true servants of the one who created them and really find peace through that. Qul amantu billah. So this is important for us. Say, I truly believe in Allah. If you truly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as your creator and as your sustainer, as your maker, as the one who governs your affairs, the one who provides for you, if you truly believe in that and that He alone deserves your devotion, then you will find it very easy to follow His commands. ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. And then be steadfast on that path. Yusuf alayhi salam, he made a dua. His dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was, Tawaffani what? Musliman. Tawaffani Muslima. Wa alhiqani bis salihin. Oh Allah, cause me to die as a Muslim. Cause me to die as a Muslim and put me in the company of the righteous. And every Jumu'ah, just about, you probably hear the khatib say, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. O you who have believed, fear Allah as He ought to be feared, and don't die except as Muslims. As the scholars of tafsir have mentioned, the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to die except as a Muslim, when you don't know when you're going to die, means that you have to what? You have to live in a state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to live as a Muslim. And that dua to die as a Muslim is a dua to live as well as a Muslim. So to be in that state of Islam, of true submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until one dies. And that is istiqamah. Istiqamah, as Ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala has mentioned, other scholars of Islam, it is to stay on the path of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not going right and not going left. Stay right on that path. Not going to the right and not going to the left. Not following your lowly desires and your passions. Not allowing your mind to be altered by whatever isms are out there and whatever ideologies or philosophies are out there. That you stay on that path of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you remain on that path until death. So what I want you to picture, and this is the subhanAllah, sunnah of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, when Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he asked him to teach him a dua, and he said to say, Allahumma hdini wa saddidni. Oh Allah, guide me and saddidni. Which I'll translate by way of the hadith itself. So the Prophet ﷺ said, when you think of hidayah, when you think of guidance, asking Allah for guidance, think about being on the path. So in other words, you actually should imagine that there's a path and you're on that path when you ask Allah for guidance. Don't let it be just an abstract concept. Actually think about a path. And he said, and when you ask for as-sadad, then think of the arrow hitting its target. Think of the arrow hitting its target. So in other words, you stay on that path and you get to the end of that path. Being upon istiqamah means that you have a goal for yourself. That goal is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to please Him, is the dar al-akhirah. It's the hereafter. And you imagine that there's a path and you don't want to go off to the right and the left. Istiqamah requires that from us. It requires a goal. And it requires that you remain faithful to the values and beliefs that are necessary to stay on that path. The Prophet ﷺ informed us that a time will come to people where as-sabir ala dinihi kal-qabid ala al-jamr, that the one who is holding fast to his religion will be like one who is holding a hot piece of coal. The reality is, most of us have never tried to hold a piece of coal, and I don't recommend that. But even if you try to hold anything that's hot, it's very difficult. And it doesn't have to be, it's not going to be as hot as a piece of coal. It's very difficult to hold on to that. In fact, for some people, they'll find it impossible. The Prophet ﷺ said that there will come to the people a time when those who hold fast to their deen will be like those who are holding on to a hot piece of coal. And when we think about it, today, if you really believe in Islam and you promote the beliefs of Islam and you say there's an absolute truth, there's an absolute truth. I believe that there is an objective morality. This is what morality is. Marriage is between a man and a woman. That's what I believe. This is what Islam says. Oh, he's homophobic. He's transphobic. He's against feminism. Or whatever else they might say, just because you actually believe that there's an objective morality. That this is what Islam says. And this is what it is. And this is what I believe. So you get called names. And you're ridiculed. And you're called backwards. And because of all of that, you know what happens? You let go of the coal. It's just too hot for you. But when you let go of that coal, you know what else also happens? There's no more istiqamah. You went right or you went left. And this doesn't mean that you have to, in every situation, you have to announce, publicize what your view is on everything. But it does mean that you have to remain faithful to what you believe is the truth. And inshallah, if you're not that strong, I just can't say these things in public, but okay. By staying on that path, bi'idhnillah, at some point, Allah Azza wa Jalla will bless you. And believe me, there are more people like you and who think like you think than you realize. But because so many people are browbeaten into following the latest trends just so that they can survive in a pluralistic society. Pluralism, by the way, does not dictate that we become a soup. You can be more like a salad, where you can actually distinguish between the things. Still live in some level and degree of harmony without being at war. Doesn't mean that we all have to melt. The American way, of course, is the melting pot. It's the theory. But the reality is that for a person who is truly holding on to their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be distinguished. You will be a bit strange. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Tuba lil ghuraba. Bada al-Islamu ghariban wa sayaudu ghariban. Islam began strange and is going to go back to being strange. Glad tidings to those who are strange. And wallahi, we don't go through any of the type of oppression and troubles and difficulties like the Prophet ﷺ and the companions went through in order to establish the deen. Usually the worst thing that we go through, like the absolute worst thing, you get fired from your job. It's like the worst thing. And if people talk about you on Facebook or something like that, you can handle that, inshallah. But the reality is that for this deen to have been established, people made sacrifice their lives. They sacrificed their families, like their social status. They sacrificed everything. Their wealth. They gave all of that up so that we could be here today as worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Say that I have faith in Allah and then be upright. There's a lot that can be said on this particular topic. And what I like to do is go briefly over 2 points that Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentions that will help people remain steadfast, or that is considered to be the path towards istiqamah. Before I get to what Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned, I want to remind myself and all of you that al-istiqamah is what we're asking for in every single salah. And beware when you ask. Fatiha is dua. So when you're saying ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, that sirat al-mustaqim is al-istiqamah. So you're asking al-hidayah ila al-istiqamah. You're asking for guidance to istiqamah. But remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept dua from a heart that is inattentive and heedless. So when we pray, we should be conscious that we are asking Allah for guidance to istiqamah, and not just run through Surah Al-Fatiha. Because many times that's what we wind up doing, because we're trying to get salat over with. We're not trying to enjoy the salat. Even in our language, we kind of just say, well, let me just get salat out the way and then we can do this. And that's something we need to pay attention to. So with Surah Al-Fatiha, we're asking for istiqamah. And Shaykh Tahir Wyatt rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, تَأَمَّلْتُ أَنْفَعَ الدُّعَاء فَإِذَا هُوَ سُؤَالُ الْعَوْنِ عَلَى مَرْضَاتِهِ. He said, I was thinking about what's the most beneficial dua. Thinking, what's the most beneficial dua? And he said, and then it dawned on me that it is asking Allah's aid to please Him. Right? And you think about the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught Mu'adh to say at the end of every salat. Who knows that dua? Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Oh Allah, aid me in doing what? And remembering you and thanking you and worshiping you properly. He says, I thought about it and it dawned on me that the most beneficial dua is asking Allah's aid to please Him. He said, ثُمَّ رَأَيْتُهُ فِي الْفَاتِحَةِ, and then I saw it in Surah Al-Fatiha, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. So, this is the most important dua that we can make. And because it's the most important dua that we can make, Allah Azza wa Jal made it an obligation upon us to make it. And that's just the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those things that we need most, kawnan, yani from a universal standpoint, are the things that are most available. What does every human being need the most? Air. Is there more air or more water?
Air.
There's more air. After air, what do we need more? Water or food? Water. Is there more water or more food on earth? There's more water. It's just the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the creation. And likewise, shar'an, those things that are from a legislative standpoint, the things that we need the most are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated upon us the most. And so therefore that dua of in Surah Al-Fatiha, or Surah Al-Fatiha itself is dua, is the most important dua. It's what we need the most, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obligated upon us the most. So we should pay attention to that. And recognize that we will only have istiqamah if Allah Azza wa Jal gives us istiqamah. And so we ask for it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the dua that the Prophet ﷺ used to make the most, according to Salama radiallahu ta'ala anha, was Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O turner of the hearts, make my heart firm on your deen. That's istiqamah. Being firm on the deen and staying on that path, that's istiqamah. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he would begin his prayer at night, and that night prayer is extremely important because we're talking about the last third of the night, and dua is more likely to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ would say, Allahumma rabbi Jibra'il wa Mika'il wa Israfil, fatir as-samawati wal-ard, alim al-ghaybi wa shahada, anta tahkumu bayna ibadika fima kanu fihi yakhtalifun. If you don't know that part of dua, that's fine. This is the part that ihdini lima ikhtalafa fihi min al-haqqi bi'idhnik. Guide me to that which has been differed over from the truth by your will, with your permission. Innaka tahdi man tasha'u ila siratin mustaqim. You guide whom you will to a straight path. So the Prophet ﷺ is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide him to that straight path. Prophet ﷺ is asking for istiqamah. And if our Prophet ﷺ is doing this, then it is very important, likewise, that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to that path of al-istiqamah. But that being said, how do we get there? How do we get to the point where we are mustaqim? Or what is the path? What is the path towards al-istiqamah? This, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is what we'll read some of the statements of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala on this particular point. I'd ask that you just bear with me as we work through this, but it's quite important. So Ibn al-Qayyim has a very important book called Tariq al-Hijratain, and in that book he says qa'idatun fi dhikri tariqin yusilu ila al-istiqamah. He's going to mention for us a fundamental principle in mentioning the path that leads to istiqamah. And he said there are two things. The first of those things is hirasatul khawatir. If you want to be mustaqim, you want to be upright, you want to be steadfast, you want to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you want to stay away from those things that are going to take you away from the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hirasatul khawatir. That is, that you are cognizant of, that you guard your thoughts. That you guard your thoughts. Brothers and sisters, just again, stay with me. This is There's very important steps that a person has to take in order to be right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A khatir or a khatira in this context, it refers to the fleeting thoughts. So it's something that comes to mind and then it goes. Okay? So you were riding down the street, you saw a billboard, something popped into your head, and it came up. It was a thought. Came and it left. There's something else called al-azaim or azima, which is that you are firmly determined to do something. Okay, so we have khawatir, which are just these thoughts that you have. And then we have azaim. These are like, you're determined to do this. I have a plan. I figured out how I want to do it. And you start taking some action towards getting that thing done. In between those, we have al-humum, hum. Does anybody know what that is? Sorry? No, okay, not in this case. It doesn't mean stress in this case. It can. Concerns. Okay. Ida hamma bishay. What does that mean? You actually, it's not a fleeting thought at this point. You have the intention to do something, but not quite an azima where you're firmly, determined to do this thing. So there's these three levels. Al-ham is in between. The khatira is just something that came to your mind and it kind of goes. Azima is that I'm firm. I'm going to do this thing and I've got a plan and I'm working towards it. And that hum is somewhere in the middle. So just understanding the concepts. Okay. Now, he says that the first thing that one has to do in order to travel the path of being upright and mustaqim, hirasat al-khawatir, that you protect your thoughts, وحفظها والحذر كل الحذر من إهمالها والاسترسال معها, and that you are very conscious and that you are cautious about allowing these thoughts to just linger in your head. Now, obviously, he's talking about those thoughts that are not good. And there's nobody sitting here today that is not from the children of Adam. We're all from the children of Adam. وَكُلُّ بَنِي آدَمْ خَطَّاءٌ. All of us make mistakes. Every sin that we have ever committed has started out as a thought. Something came to your mind and you thought about it. And then that thought lingered there. And then it became an intention. And that intention became an azima, determination. And then you went and did something that you should not have done. That's how it all starts, with the thought. فإن أصل الفساد كله من قبلها يجيب. And that's because all corruption, every sin, always starts with a thought, because these thoughts are the seeds of shaitan. He plants them in the heart. If you let it stay there, he comes and he waters it. He waters it until it grows. Understand this point. So it starts as a thought. Evil thoughts lead to evil actions if you don't get them out of your heart. Alright? So shaitan, he comes and he waters them مرة بعد أخرى حتى تصير إرادات. He comes and he waters it again until it becomes an irada. You have the will to do this thing, and then he keeps on watering it until it becomes azaim, this firm resolve. And then that will eventually produce action. Goes on to say, and that there's no doubt that pushing away that first thought Getting it out of your head is a lot easier than stopping once you're already determined to do that thing. This is fiqh, ikhwan, by the way. Not Hanbali or Shafi'i or Hanafi fiqh. This is fiqh of your heart. Fiqh of really being a true slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us understand. Okay, all right. Now, something bad comes to my mind. And subhanAllah, sometimes it's the result of your own overthinking. And sometimes it's just because you heard something or you saw something and it affected you some kind of way. And so you have to realize, you have to take the time to know yourself, in this sense, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for istiqamah, and realize that let me get rid of this thought before shaitan waters it and it becomes something else. So that being said, Ibn al-Qayyim doesn't leave us hanging. He says, فَإِن قُلْتَ فَمَا الطَّرِيقُ إِلَى حِفْظِ الْخَوَاطِرِ. So if you were to ask them, what's the path towards actually protecting my thoughts? How do I do that? How do I keep myself from thinking bad things? Right? He says there are several asbab. There are several things that you can do. Okay. He's going to mention 10, and I'm going to mention 10 as well, but we're going to kind of go through them quickly, inshallah. And then somebody, bi'idhnillah, at the end is going to summarize for us. Somebody who's paying a lot of attention. So number 1, العلم الجازم باطلاع الرب سبحانه ونظره إلى قلبك وعلمه بتفصيل خواطرك. The first thing that you need to do in order to protect your thoughts is to have firm knowledge that Allah is looking at your heart and that He has detailed knowledge of your thoughts. Number 1. Know that your thoughts do not escape Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't just see what you do. Allah Azza wa Jal knows what you think. He knows what's happening in your heart. Second thing is haya'uka min, is that you have some shame, that you have some haya, that you're shy in front of your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 3, ijlaluka lah an yara mithla tilka al-khawatir fi baytihi alladhi khalaqa li ma'rifatihi wa mahabbatihi, is that you revere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your reverence of Him is profound enough to the extent that you do not want Him to see those thoughts in the house that He has created, that is your heart, in the house that He has created to know Him and to love Him. And subhanallah, that's enough. It should be, honestly. And if we get those 3 things down and then we internalize them, imagine, brothers and sisters in Islam, you take your hard-earned money and you build a house. You build this house, subhanAllah. And you built it so that your children would have shelter, so that they wouldn't have to worry about having a roof over their heads, and so forth. And then they did things in those houses that, in that house that you built for them, they did things that were foul, displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You would feel a certain kind of way because you put forth so much effort to make sure that they had the things that they need, and then they used it in a way that it was unintended for. Allah Azza wa Jal, Lahul Mathalul A'la, He created our hearts to know Him, to love Him. And if we allow those hearts to be filled with that which is displeasing to Him, we should have some degree of shame. We should have some degree of shame. And this is what he's encouraging us with here. Rahimahullah. الرابع خوفك من أن تسقط من عينه بتلك الخواطر. The fourth thing is that you fall from Allah's grace because of those thoughts. That you fear falling from His grace. That Allah Azza wa Jal, yani, you look as an abd, you want Allah to hold you in high esteem, if you will. But by doing these things, you fall from the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Khamis, إِثَارُكَ لَهُ أَن يُسَاكِنَ قَلْبَكَ غَيْرَ مَحَبَّتِهِ. So you are giving preference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that your heart will be occupied by other than His love. So there's no room for anything else. If you fill it with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there's no room for anything else. The sixth thing is that you fear that those evil thoughts will breed others, and that's normally the case. Like, thoughts breed. And the fire will spread, the fire of those thoughts will spread and consume the faith that is in your heart, and it will consume the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala such that it may disappear without you even realizing. Seventh, to know that these thoughts are just like seeds that are thrown to birds to hunt them. SubhanAllah, when a hunter wants to hunt birds and he throws out the seeds, the birds come down to eat, and then they're all right there. It sets it as a trap. These thoughts are just like seeds that are thrown to birds to hunt them. They are but seeds thrown in a trap that's been laid to hunt you, even though you don't realize. The eighth thing is to know that these evil thoughts cannot be combined in the same heart with the thoughts that are imani, that are faith-based. They're diametrically opposed. They don't come in the same heart except that one conquers the other. There's a fight going on between those thoughts that are based on faith and your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your love of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those evil thoughts. There's going to be a fight in your chest, in your heart. One of them is going to conquer the other. They do not come into the same heart except that one conquers the other and it expels it and takes its place. So what do you think about a heart in which devilish and egotistical thoughts have conquered the imani thoughts and expelled them and taken their place? What is this heart going to look like? Number 9. أن يعلم أن تلك الخواطر بحر من بحور الخيال لا ساحل له. These thoughts are from the imaginary seas that have no coast. If the heart enters the depths of the sea, it will be overwhelmed by that darkness and it will drown. Yani, these thoughts, they have no end, in other words. Once you go down that road, you will drown. You can't swim. You won't be able to go against it. You may at some point realize that you've gone down a dark path and you seek to be rescued, but it's like the drowning person that is grasping for seaweed. A heart that is owned by thoughts, a heart that is owned by thoughts is far from success. It is tortured by these thoughts, in fact. And it is totally preoccupied with unbeneficial things. The last thing that he mentions in terms of hifz al-khawatir, how do we protect our thoughts, is to know that these thoughts are the valley of the foolish. They are the wishes of the ignorant people which produce nothing except for regret and disgrace. And so it's critical, brothers and sisters, that a person who wants to be mustaqim, he really or she really wants to travel a path that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the first step is to protect what you think about. It's the first step. The second step, and the last step that Ibn al-Qayyim mentions, is a little bit more involved, and it's already 9 o'clock, right? I'll summarize it. So the first one is what? Protect your thoughts. How are you going to protect your thoughts? Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned 10 things. You might not remember 10 things. How are you going to protect your thoughts? I'm not going to answer that question. I'm asking you, how are you going to? I can't.
Knowing that Allah is looking at us.
Knowing that Allah is looking at us. Go a little further. That He's looking at what about you? That He's looking at your heart. And that I don't want Allah to see in my heart that which is displeasing to Him. Tayyib. Yes. I saw a brother over. Yes. How do you protect your thoughts through that? Yes.
You know that, or to appreciate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this heart for the sole purpose of worship.
Allah Akbar. So to appreciate and to know and appreciate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you this heart, to know Him, to love Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship Him. And therefore, because I know that, I'm not going to allow those seeds to be planted by shaitan in my heart. So there are other things. In 1 second, just on this point of thoughts. Just to add to something that Ibn al-Qayyim said, and it's not actually an addition, but inshallah it's a clarification. Don't put yourself in environments where you are going to begin to think the evil thoughts. Every person knows themselves. Every person knows themselves. You know that, well, alhamdulillah, when you're in the masjid, you have good thoughts, things are going well for you. You know that when you go to some other places, some people's houses, some whatever, that there are thoughts that come to you that are not good thoughts. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't, as they say, don't test your faith. Don't put yourself in a position where you are testing your faith. In that way. Let me see if I pass or not. That's not one of those ones that you want to see whether you pass or fail. So keep away from environments that stir your emotions a certain kind of way, that make you think a certain kind of way. It's very important. The second point, and this is the last point. So the first one is protecting your thoughts. The second one is sidq at-ta'ahhubi li liqa'i Allah azza wa jalla. That you are truthful in preparation for your meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This will help you for istiqamah. When we talk about istiqamah, I said that you should think about a what? A path. Okay, perfect. That path ends with what? It ends with the hereafter. When you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Staying on that path requires that you protect your thoughts. The end of that path is that you will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being on the path, and bi'idhnillah, that will be the path of Jannah. So it actually makes sense that if you want to be mustaqim, that you have to protect your thoughts, and that you have to prepare for what's at the end of that road. You have to prepare for death. Literally, truthful preparation. Anytime we know something is going to happen, in general, we prepare for that thing, whatever it might be. I'm going to dinner with so-and-so. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to wear whatever I'm going to wear. I'm thinking about these things. I'm going to Hajj. I'm going to prepare. Learn about what I'm supposed to do when I make Hajj. How long am I going to be there? I need to take enough outfits. Whatever. We prepare for things that we know are going to happen. Sidq at-ta'ahub li-liqa'i Allahi azza wa jal. That you truthfully prepare for the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says that this is from the most beneficial things that help a person achieve istiqamah. Why is that? Because a person that truly prepares for the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, انقطع قلبه عن الدنيا وخمدت من نفسه نيران الشهوات. At this point, a person's heart is detached from the dunya. Do we still have to live here in this dunya? We still need a house? We still need a job? Yeah. But where is all of that? It's in your hand. It's not in your heart. The heart is detached from the dunya. And that preparation will extinguish the fires of passion that are inside it. Yani that is, those passions that are for other than the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whatever shahawat that a person has inside of them and so forth, it's extinguished when you truly prepare for that meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَخْبَتَ قَلْبُهُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ. And that heart turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It wants Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His aspiration is to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to love Him and to prefer pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over all things. And this is critical. And some of the scholars of Islam have said that a person can test themselves. When you are put in a position, one of them is pleasing to your nafs, and the other one is pleasing to Allah, and you can't do both. Which one do you choose? And that is how you will be able to judge yourself. Do you really prefer to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are you trying to please yourself? When a person gets there, to this level, where everything they do is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you may want to pay attention a little bit here, because this is deep. He says that this will bring about a new type of himmah, a new type of really striving and aspiring to be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will give you another level of knowledge. Not in a esoteric sense, but now you begin to experience what it really means to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not theory anymore. It's not just something you read about, but you experience it. And subhanAllah, it's like a person who hears someone talk about marriage and then you actually get married. It's two different things. Hearing about it is not like actually seeing it, is not actually being engaged in it. So there's the one concept where we read about it, and then there's when you actually experience it. There's another level of knowledge. He says, وَلَدَ وِلَادَةً أُخْرَى تكون نسبة قلبه فيها إلى الدار الآخرة كنسبة جسمه إلى هذه الدار بعد أن كانت في بطن أمه. Once again, when you get to this level, you may have only heard this. I'm going to say it in English because people will go, what? Muslim says that? When you get to this level, you will be born again. You will be born again. You heard of born again Christians. Ibn al-Qayyim is talking about born again Muslims. Huh? Well, it's even deeper than that. So he says, you will be born again. The heart at this birth to the hereafter will be like your body is to this world after it was in the heart, after it was in the womb of its mother. Yani after your body was in the womb of your mother. فَيُولَدُ قَلْبُهُ وِلَادَةً حَقِيقِيَّةً. So the heart is actually born in this state. When it gets to the point where it is truly attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and its only aspiration is pleasing Allah. It's coming, sorry? Ya layt ahl al-fitra. This is not just from the fitrah. This is through striving and through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's gift. Al-fitra, we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, but getting to this level is different. I mean, this is the level we're talking about of the prophets and the siddiqeen and the shuhada and the salihin, where they really reached the level where they cared about nothing except for pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So I'm gonna just give it a second. Give it a second, inshallah. He says, just the same way that your body was really born, right? It was covered by the womb, and you were really born. The heart is covered by an-nafs wa shahawat. There's stages, and that once a person is able to shed them by Allah's leave, then the heart will be born. فخروج قلبه نفسه بارزا إلى الدار الآخرة كخروج جسمه عن بطن أمه بارزا إلى هذه الدار. وهذا معنى ما يذكر عن المسيح صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال يا بني إسرائيل إنكم لن تلجوا ملكوت السماء أو تلجوا ملكوت السماء حتى تولدوا مرتين. He says, so the heart will be born and it will be bariz, be out in the open for the hereafter, the same way that your body is born into this life. And this, he says, was the meaning of what is narrated that Isa alayhi salatu wasalam said, O children of Israel, you will not, how do they say it in English? SubhanAllah. You will not taste, it's not taste, I forget the word they use, subhanAllah. But anyway, that the meaning of it is that you will not find the kingdom, I think that's the word, that's how they say it. You will not find the kingdom of God until you are born again. It says this is the meaning of what is narrated on Isa alayhi salatu wasalam in this. The point he says here, this is the point that I want us to focus on. Because I know that's a bit of a higher level. But truly preparing for that meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, truly knowing that eternity is not something that we can fathom, that no matter how long we live on this earth, that we need to be preparing for real life. وَإِنَّ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ. That the hereafter is real life. That preparing for that is what will allow one to remain upon a path of istiqamah. However, I do want to mention this point, inshallah ta'ala, in closing. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala says, because of the fact that the majority of people have not been born again, nor have they conceptualized, they haven't even fathomed the concept of being born again, fadlan an yusaddiqu biha. Or even get to the point, because conceptualizing one thing, believing in it is another thing, right? That they even believe in it. He says, فَيَقُولُ الْقَائِلُ كَيْفَ يُولَدَ الرَّجُلُ الْكَبِيرُ. How can a grown man be born? كَيْفَ يُولَدَ الْقَلْبُ. How can the heart be born? He says, because of the fact that people can't conceptualize or haven't conceptualized it, don't know people who have experienced it, لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُمْ إِلَيْهَا هِمَّ وَلَا عَزِيمَةً. Then they have no aspiration to get to that level and no determination, because they don't know it exists. Which is subhanAllah, a phenomenal point. Phenomenal. You know, and it's from the blessings of being around people who are more knowledgeable, of being around people who are better worshipers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all of that, because you start to aspire to do things that you didn't even know, like people still, subhanAllah, I remember not too long ago, in fact, I heard someone young, 14 or 15, say, nobody prays at night anymore. That's what they did at the time of the Sahaba. Nobody. Man, Fahim, yeah, he didn't understand that there's still people, Muslims, who pray at night, every night. They may not look like it. SubhanAllah, I had a very good friend, Allah yarhamu, older brother, he was in his 70s, in Medina. You know, if you looked at him, he didn't have a beard. He used to say, I make dua that Allah makes me strong enough to have a beard. SubhanAllah, I know for a fact, the man prays every night in the last third of the night, prays 5 furud, all 5 salawat in the Prophet's masjid, even though he lived 20-25 minutes away. SubhanAllah. And you look at him, it doesn't look like it. If it has a look. If it has a look, that wouldn't be what you would expect, SubhanAllah. But SubhanAllah, and alhamdulillah, al-khair baqi fil ummah, wallahi alhamdulillah. It's still good in this ummah, wallahi alhamdulillah. But some people, because they've never experienced it, or they haven't been around those kind of people, they don't aspire to it. And this is what Ibn al-Qayyim is talking about here. Because so many people have never experienced it, or they don't know anybody that's experienced it, they don't even know it exists. That the heart can really get to a point where it really desires nothing except for the pleasure of Allah, except the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then they don't aspire for it, they don't have any determination to get there. كَيْفَ يَعْزِمُ عَلَى الشَّيْءِ مَنْ لَا يَعْرِفُهُ وَلَا يُصَدِّقُهُ. How can somebody be determined to do something that they don't even know exists and they don't believe in? So he says, وَلَكِنْ إِذَا كُشِفَ حِجَابُ الْغَفْلَةِ عَنِ الْقَلْبِ صَدَّقَ بِذَلِكَ وَعَلِمَ أَنَّهُ لَمْ يُولَدْ قَلْبُهُ بَعْدُ. Here's the last thing I wanted to read from here. He says, but if the hijab of ghaflah, heedlessness and neglect, is removed from the heart, then that person, he will believe in it, and he will know that his heart has not yet been born. And so, as we strive for this path of istiqamah, so much, I mean, this is our deen, right? And this is what we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. So there's so much that can be said about this topic of istiqamah, and hopefully, this won't be the last opportunity that you hear about al-istiqamah, that there will be other people that approach it from different angles, but this is our ghaya. This is what we're asking for, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. And this is what we're asking Allah for when we're saying, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik, and we're saying, Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana, wa hab lana min ladunka rahman. All of these du'as that we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for istiqamah. Understanding that it's a path, and that it ends with that meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bi'idnillahi ta'ala, will be one of those things that will help us conceptualize what is necessary for istiqamah as we ask Allah azza wa jalla to make us upon His sirat al-mustaqim. If there are any questions, I'll take them now, inshallah. Fadl, Shaykh.
The last point you made, isn't that, doesn't that make it, it makes more sense that guiding the ideas in the heart is not just limited to the bad or evil ideas, but you can also entertain the good ones that will keep you closer to Allah.
Correct. Well, yeah, alhamdulillah. Good. I'm glad you mentioned that point. So guarding the thoughts, though, if I'm protecting from those things that I don't want. Right? I mean, just think about protection. We have, alhamdulillah, we have protection outside the masjid. Right? That doesn't mean the Muslims can't come in. People that just want to pray, they're trying to keep people that don't want good from coming in, right? I mean, that's normally what a guard is going to do. So that just because we're guarding our thoughts, it means that we want to keep the bad ones out and we want to let the good thoughts come in. We definitely want to entertain good thoughts. And in fact, the Prophet from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's infinite mercy is that we get rewarded for good thoughts even if we didn't do anything. It's from Allah's mercy. Man hamma bihasana. Yani you have the thought. It's stuck in your mind. It wasn't just a fleeting thought, right? There was a ham. Man hamma bi hasana, but you didn't do it. You still get the reward. It's still written as if you did a good deed. So yes, definitely, we want to entertain those good thoughts. We want those good thoughts to grow. Yeah. Anything else? Further in the back first, inshallah.
Repeat the last point about heedlessness being removed from the heart, and then what we observe then?
He said if إذا كشف حجاب الغفلة عن القلب صدق بذلك وعلم أن قلبه لم يولد بعد. So once that heedlessness is removed from the heart, he says hijab al-ghafla, which is the barrier of negligence and heedlessness and so forth, apathy maybe even, right? Once that's removed from the heart, then the person will believe. He will believe that his heart can be born, and he will know that his heart has not yet been born. Naam.
He actually asked the same question.
Oh, alhamdulillah. Kafallahu al-mu'mineen al-kitab. Nah. Barakallahu feekum, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. I'm sorry, do the sisters have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned the point where you said that knowing that these thoughts lead to regret.
Yeah.
So what steps do you take to get rid of that regret in terms of if the thoughts have already gotten to that stage where it's just overwhelming, and kind of, you've also mentioned the point where like you already feel like the heart is drowning in it.
Yeah. So right. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he's mentioning here that knowing prior to that evil thoughts lead to evil actions, which lead to regret. I mean that's the nature of the human being who still has something, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored to still have some connection with him. That when they've done something wrong, they feel like they've done something wrong. And that is healthy. That's healthy because it allows you to make tawbah. Any medical doctors here? Okay. Maybe you have enough knowledge of medicine to help me on this point here. If somebody is beginning to get sick, maybe there's a growth where there shouldn't be growth inside the body. Is it better that they feel it or they don't feel it? It's better that they feel it, because then you can treat it before it becomes it gets out of hand and it becomes something that is actually dangerous and harmful and so forth. And it's similar for when somebody does something that is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they feel something inside of themselves, because if they don't, they're going to continue in that path. The fact that they feel regret is actually good. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, at-tawbatu an-nadam, or an-nadam tawbah. That feeling regret is actually tawbah. Because once you feel that regret, that should lead to you leaving it off, because you don't want to keep doing something that you feel remorseful about. And it should lead to firm determination that you will not go back to doing that thing, which is, those are the conditions of at-tawbah. So his point here was that part of the way that I'm encouraged to keep these thoughts out of my mind is that I know that they lead to actions that I will then regret. It doesn't mean that a person is going to be perfect. In fact, Allah Azza wa Jal said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ what? وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا. استقيموا إليه واستغفروا. Yani be upright and seek forgiveness. What's the relationship between istiqamah and istighfar? Anybody? No? What's the relationship between istiqamah and istighfar? That as you try to be mustaqim and you try to travel that path of istiqamah, you are going to slip sometimes. It's the nature of human beings. There's going to be some, and not all slippage is created equal, by the way. It's not an excuse, to commit major sins. Oh, we all make mistakes. Not all mistakes are the same. So the point, though, is that Allah Azza wa Jal, in commanding us with istiqamah, also commands us with istighfar. And it's similar to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ where he says, Ittaqillah haythuma kunt, fear Allah wherever you may be, وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا. Follow up a bad deed with a good deed and it will erase it. What's the relationship between a bad deed, good deed, and taqwa? As you try to have taqwa wherever you are, there's going to be some shortcomings. So when you have a shortcoming, follow it up with a good deed and it will erase it. And there's always hope. There's always hope, alhamdulillah. Now,
when you have negative thoughts, how does that write it down as a sin, right?
no. Negative thoughts are not written down as a sin. What's written down as a sin is the person who has an azima to do something that is negative. So a person who has not just the mere intention, but they're determined to do that negative thing. Even if they don't do it, it's written as if they've done it.
So there's a chance we'll get this stuff out if we don't do it into action.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I mean the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, when he say the iltaqa muslimani bisayfayhima falqatilu wal maqtulu fin nar. The two Muslims come together with their swords unsheathed, then the killer and the killed, the murderer and the victim, if you will, are in the hellfire. They say, okay, we understand about the murderer, but what about the one who was killed? What about the victim? The Prophet ﷺ said, Kana harisan ala qatli sahibi. He was determined to kill his companion. The only thing that stopped him was what? He got killed first. But this is more than just the evil thought. He didn't just think about it. He actually grabbed the sword and went out. So al-azim yunazzal manzilat al-fa'il fi sharia. And the one who is determined to do something from a legislative standpoint is given the same ruling in terms of what's written with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the one who has done the action. And inshallah we'll discuss more of that when we deal with our class on Ubudiyya, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
So just as a quick reminder, the Al-Ubudiyya class will be tomorrow, inshallah, 8:30, inshallah. Registration will take place. We will also be providing babysitting for those who also want to attend with children, inshallah. So everyone is welcome, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, and hopefully see you tomorrow, inshallah.